Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to get started and say that I think this is a panel discussion that in some ways is going to put business in business for the environment. We've got 4 companies here, so there's been a lot of interesting discussion so far today. We're living in an era of great transformation, and we're going to hear from some of the companies that are on the front lines of changing the way they do business, changing in some cases the very objective of their business in order to meet the challenge. In any era of transformation, you get winners and losers. During the Great Depression, companies that continued to invest in the future were the ones that emerged on the other side as most powerful, most influential, and gained market share. And so I think the race today in the changing world in which we live goes to the companies that embrace it and in some ways chase the disruption, if you will. Because we're busily remaking the products and services that consumers use, changing the consumer experience such that they think more about sustainability, building smart infrastructure so we can achieve massive efficiency gains, remaking transportation systems, and let's not forget green growth should also include delivering value for emerging markets because we have lifted a number of people out of poverty and will continue to do so and won't be able to do that if we don't have green growth. So we have a great panel here to discuss this all with you. I will be very brief in my introductions. You've got the program book so you can look them up. I'm going to go from right to left and start with Jochen Zeitz, who is the chairman and CEO of Puma, Josef Meilinger, who is the president and CEO of Siemens Korea, Charlie Brown, who is the president of Office Depot International, Rolf Stangl, who is the CEO of SIG Combibloc, and Mohamed El-Ashry, who is the chairman of the Renewable Energy Network 21, REN 21, and is a champion of the earth from 2006. So a wonderful panel, and I think we should get right to it. Jochen, do you want to start by talking a little bit about how you engage with consumers and also build innovation into Puma with sustainability in mind?
Well, obviously, I don't need to introduce the company. That's the good thing. Everybody knows what we do and what we sell. I believe that engaging the consumer is absolutely critical. We are sitting here without consumers, and when you go out into the street and start talking to the consumer, you realize what a different language they talk. And if we want to inspire the consumer, we have to talk the consumer language. If we want to build a consumer movement, we have to talk the consumer language. So getting the consumer inspired about sustainability is absolutely critical. The question is, how do you do that? I think there are, a few cornerstones that companies have to bear in mind. The first one is we have to cover our bases. If you don't walk the talk, you don't want to start talking to the consumer about sustainability. And when we speak of corporate social responsibility and or corporate responsibility or global responsibility, corporations have to make sure that they look at their supply chain and they do everything that is necessary in order to green the business, incorporating all the costs that we should actually pay for ecosystem services, making sure that we are evolving our economic model into a closed loop circle, and so on. So I think that's the basis, that's the absolute must. And I compare it with figure skating. You have the short program, the things you have to do, the things you may not like because they also cost money, but it's something you have to do. And then you have the free skating when you want to win the medal, and that's all about inspiring the consumer. And I think there are 3 aspects that you have to bear in mind. First of all, who are you talking to? And I've noticed, talking to environmentalists, talking to corporations, or talking to governments, we are speaking 3 different languages, even if we communicate in English. When you talk to the consumer, you add another language. That is a big obstacle to overcome. And as a consumer-driven company, we have to define who our consumer is first. If you want to create a consumer movement, you cannot change the whole society. You have to start with your consumer and the ones that are the opinion leaders, the trendsetters. So you don't talk to the mainstream in the beginning if you want to talk about sustainability, because the mainstream will not understand it. And I've often been asked, well, can you raise your price when you sell greener products? I say probably not, because the consumer is not ready to do that. Why are they not ready? Because they don't understand it yet. We have not communicated enough in the consumer language. So we have to start with the opinion leaders. That's number one. Now, where do we talk to the consumer? And I think today's modern technology and social networking are obviously amazing platforms where we can actually speak level to level with our consumer, whether it's blogs, chat rooms, or other ways of communication with Twitter, Facebook, and so on. That is a great opportunity for corporations to go away from the model, here's my advertising, buy my product, by really speaking to the consumer on the same language. And then it's the question of how we communicate. And as a company that sells cool products, obviously we have to communicate in a cool way, in a fun way, because otherwise we will not convince the consumer that the days of excessive consumerism are over, and we need to create a mind shift in the heads of our consumer towards the long run, that they think about the long run, that they consume more responsibly. But you don't want to communicate that with a message that is doom and gloom. You want to make it fun, and I think that's very important, and that's very often forgotten. People buy our products because they enjoy them, they enjoy using them, they enjoy running or playing sports in them, and they don't want to be burdened, with the problems of the world. They want to be aware of it, but they want it to be presented in a digestible way. And for us, it means, really saying it in a fun way, in an engaging, in a sexy way, and that's the language we need to talk. So if you bear that in mind, who's your target consumer, where do you communicate, and how do you communicate, that's when you're starting to engage the consumer, and also transfer and translate the message of we need a new model, a new economic model in the consumer language.
I'm not surprised you wove running and skating into your talk. That's perfect. I want to go next to Rolf, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about SIG Combibloc, and also you rely very heavily on a renewable resource.
Sure.
Wood. How does that inform your strategy?